calling this special meeting of the City Council to order. Today is Tuesday, May 15, 2012. I'd ask everyone to please rise. At this time, we have no one leading us in the prayer. If you could please bow your heads for a moment of silence. Thank you. At this time, I'd ask Counselor at Large John Saunders to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Counselor Saunders. I'd like to thank everyone for being in this room today, all the employees and department heads. And also would like to recognize, I know that he was here, Representative Paul Schmidt is also in the chambers. Thank you, Representative Schmidt, for being here. Number one is a communication, Council President Martins to the City Clerk Aruda requesting that a special City Council meeting is called for Tuesday, May 15, 2012 at 7 p.m. for the submittal of the FY13 City of New Bedford budget.
Motion received, place on file.
Second. Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. At this time, I would ask Councilor from Ward 6, Joseph Lopes, Councilor at Large, Deborah Coelho, to please go upstairs and ask the mayor to come downstairs. And at this time, I will take a couple minutes for a recess. Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. I'm calling this meeting back to order from recess. At this time, I recognize Councilor Joseph Lopes.
Thank you very much. Sounds like, Joe, I brought the wrong speech. I'll run back upstairs, get the state of the city. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, President Martins. Honorable members of the City Council, department heads, invited guests, and citizens of New Bedford. I am pleased to stand before the City Council tonight to present a municipal budget for the City of New Bedford for the coming fiscal year 2013. A budget is more than a blueprint for spending. It is a reflection of values and priorities. From my first day in office, I have intended for my first budget proposal to reflect as clearly as possible my values and priorities as mayor. The budget directive I gave to the city's financial management team was therefore direct and unambiguous. First, hold the line on spending and taxes. Second, find me initiatives where a modest, targeted new investment will pay for itself and then some by generating cost savings. Third, cobble together what limited resources remain to help us meet the unprecedented crisis facing our school system. My decision to establish these three priorities was not an easy one. In an extremely tight fiscal environment, it was more important than ever to make careful, thoughtful decisions so that scarce resources were directed toward the right priorities. In fiscal year 2013, we may not be able to do everything that we'd like to do. But if we are smart, we can accomplish many important things for our city. It is not news to anyone that we live in an era of diminished resources. 4 years after the financial meltdown in 2008, government at all levels is still struggling. New Bedford is no exception. The city may have weathered the 2008 economic storm, but 4 years later, we have yet to recover. We are still navigating through dangerous financial currents with no safe harbor on the horizon. Members of the City Council well appreciate the precariousness of the city's fiscal position. Difficult budget decisions by the prior administration on furlough policy, on fire department staffing, on collective bargaining, and on environmental cleanups were made with all the best intentions. In all these cases, decisions intended to keep the city's head above water in the short run have also imposed significant long-term structural constraints and created challenges for the fiscal 2013 budget. Consider more closely the following. During the next 2 fiscal years, city government will operate under the threat of a multi-million-dollar court judgment, which could erase the savings originally envisioned by the mandatory furloughs imposed on city employees. I have vowed to put up the best legal fight we can to defend the furlough policy. We have little choice. We have little choice. If the policy is invalidated by the court, my administration will be faced with no good budgetary options. They will all be painful. Second, the past decision to maintain fire department personnel strength through the use of a short-term federal grant means that by the end of the coming fiscal year, the sole source of almost 1/3 of our fire department's payroll might dry up. 3 major collective bargaining agreements with the fire, police, and teachers unions have expired, with the 4th, the municipal workers contract, set to expire next month. All 4 must now be renegotiated at potential additional cost and with no obvious source of funding to meet the requirements of the new contracts. Finally, the city must wrestle with the enormous potential expense of proposed environmental cleanups at properties bordering the Keith Middle School and New Bedford High School. Final agreements establishing responsibility for these cleanup costs were still unresolved when I took office in January. We are working hard to partner with EPA and DEP and pursue the polluters. But whatever the particular outcome, what is more clear than ever is that the long-avoided cleanup bills will soon come due, and the city will have to find a way to pay some portion of those bills. Let me be clear. My purpose in recounting these budget decisions is not to cast blame. I am not inclined to revisit the past for its own sake. My point is only that, for better or for worse, the budget proposal submitted today to you is, by necessity, shaped by these decisions. I will say again, as I've said a number of times since taking office in January, it's the mayor's job, on behalf of the city of New Bedford, to play the best hand we can with the cards that we have been dealt. That is what the citizens expect of me, and that is what I intend to deliver. Leaving aside structural constraints, let me turn to the big picture fiscal and economic climate in which my budget proposal has been prepared. Here I regret to report that the general prospects for next year's budget of more of what has become the new normal. The days of healthy revenue growth are nowhere in sight. Growth in revenues from local property taxes is projected to fall along with property valuations more generally. The total amount of money available to fund operations is forecast to increase just 0.75%. The precise level of state aid remains uncertain, and even as we've had to prepare our final budget. The ever-present difficulty in forecasting available resources was compounded this year by the absence of a local aid resolution, a measure which would have given cities and towns much more confidence in their spending plans. As it stands now, we will not learn of our final allocation from the state until the state budget is finalized in June. Meanwhile, the cost of operating government is not getting any cheaper. The cost of energy has soared, affecting our projections for vehicle fuel needs and for heating bills of municipal buildings. And as I stated from the beginning of my campaign last year, the city has already asked too much of taxpayers. Retired seniors living on fixed incomes comprise a significant portion of our households. They are fighting each month to make ends meet to pay the tax, insurance, and utility bills that allow them to remain living in their own homes. Working families continue to face the threat of job losses or reduced income for breadwinners. and middle-class households with good jobs might be tempted to relocate to other communities if we attempt to raise revenue through property taxes. Moreover, taxpayers are not the only ones paying attention. Wall Street rating agencies continue to give close scrutiny to our spending habits. Any shift in spending policy could jeopardize the creditworthiness of our bonds and spike the financing cost that the city already bears. For all of these reasons, raising taxes to fund city operations or to address the sizable off-budget liabilities is off the table. We must strive to live within our current means and spend only what we have. That is why the foundation for my fiscal year 2013 budget is a commitment to zero effective growth in spending, with total appropriations equaling approximately $284.7 million. The budget essentially mirrors last year's spending level. Appropriations from the general fund are held to a fraction of a 1% increase. General government unclassified expenditures, in fact, are reduced by nearly 6%. All this is not to say that we have simply put the budget on autopilot. As I said at the outset, even with limited resources, we are setting new priorities in the budget. We are managing to make narrow but important new investments by carefully marshaling whatever existing funds are available. We have chosen to invest in ways that can save the city significant money in the years ahead at minimal upfront cost. First, I have chosen to launch the City Stat cost-saving initiative by assigning responsibility to the Office of the Mayor with support from the Department of Management Information Systems. In so doing, I have chosen to adapt the role of the Mayor's office so that it functions not just as the home of a small personal staff, but as the key place in a city government where we can implement broad, overarching projects that cut across multiple departments. In an organization with 3,000 employees, it is essential for the Chief Executive's office to have the capacity to drive policy. Real and lasting systemic change doesn't happen by itself. It requires leadership and the resources in the right place. Our City Stat initiative more than meets this criteria. I am hopeful that this modern municipal management tool will over time deliver the same kinds of benefits for New Bedford as it has for cities like Lowell and Springfield. Second, I have also funded a position in the Office of Mayor for a Chief Financial Officer, a position recommended by state overseers and left unfilled for far too long. I wish here to thank members of the City Council for their collaborative efforts. Thanks to the Council's timely action earlier this year, it is possible for my budget to fund a competitive salary to attract a top-notch financial professional. We are well on track in that regard with a team from the Collins Center at UMass Boston assisting the city in our search and spreading the word that New Bedford has made sound fiscal management a top priority. This is a particularly important step for the city at a time when the consequences of bad financial decisions can prove extremely costly, and the benefits of smart decisions can mean major savings. By applying careful scrutiny to budget decisions and undertaking long-term financial planning, a CFO will ensure that money is allocated more precisely according to need across city departments and spent more carefully. Third, I have chosen to fund an Office of Energy Efficiency at the Department of Public Infrastructure under the leadership of Ron LaBelle. There are many costs that government incurs that are well beyond our limits to control. How much it snows, how many children enroll in our schools, how many medical emergencies require first responders. It is easy to fall into the thinking that our energy bills fall into the same category, but they don't. With just a little bit of effort, we can sharply reduce the cost of heat and electricity that government consumes. The city maintains close to 100 buildings, including nearly 30 schools and in major water and wastewater facilities. Many of our municipal buildings are antiquated. Collectively, this infrastructure costs an enormous amount of money to heat and cool. I believe that we are living at a time where being energy conscious is not just environmentally friendly, it is financially imperative. New energy conservation measures created by DPI's Energy Efficiency Office, when put in place today, will help us hold down property taxes tomorrow. Again, the premise behind all these measures is the same. A tight fiscal environment with zero wiggle room requires that any new spending measures, however modest, have to stand or fall on their potential to deliver cost savings. I would like to speak now to the situation in our public school system, both in general terms and more narrowly on budget matters. The school district budget and the city budget are indelibly linked. Decisions about municipal operations have implications for school operations and vice versa. Unpredictable state aid is a significant factor on both sides of the ledger. All of this is to say that the fiscal health and effectiveness of one will always impact the other. And right now, our schools are not in the right place. While there are pockets of true excellence in our school system, our system ranks at the bottom of the state in terms of MCAS scores and the four-year graduation rate. 2 of our schools have been placed on the state's list of worst performing schools. At the halfway point of this school year, roughly 1/3 of the high school freshmen were not on track to graduate to the 10th grade. Now, there is no doubt that our city's demographics play a role in all of this, but demographics are only part of the story. The reality is that among the state's so-called gateway cities, New Bedford is at or near the bottom in terms of MCAS scores and the four-year graduation rate. My own view on the path forward is well known by now and begins, but does not end, with a transition to new leadership under interim superintendent Mike Shea, to be followed by a rigorous search for a permanent superintendent. Even with the transition, a state takeover is still possible. The state has temporarily suspended its review of the school district's turnaround plan, but if we fail to gain state approval, the state may well intervene. As I've noted in the past, a state takeover of our schools would be a huge black eye and would devastate our city's reputation generally. It would make it far more difficult for the city to attract businesses here and would give credence to those who believe that New Bedford is not a desirable place to live. Moreover, it is important to acknowledge up front that the immediate fiscal predicament of our schools is in part the outcome of decisions made in recent years. The quick fixes of one-time revenue sources are all exhausted. Desperate measures like last year's double-digit across-the-board spending cut in the school district budget are no longer practical. Simply put, there are no magic tricks left in the school budget hat. The way forward is through responsible management and budget reforms under strong central office stewardship, beginning, as I said, with Superintendent Shea, followed by his permanent replacement. It won't be easy, but we will put the district's fiscal house in order and bring the school budget back into reality. Against this backdrop, the school district is now working on a parallel track to craft its own budget for the coming fiscal year. As we learned yesterday, the current draft school budget has a $1.7 million gap between the spending level proposed by the school department and the amount of funds available even after the city has met its school spending obligations under state law. My view is that the city and the school district have a shared responsibility to work together using a mixture of new revenue and spending cuts to close the school budget gap for the greater good of our students and teachers. The school district simply cannot afford and should not be subjected to a budget crisis at the same time it wrestles with both a leadership transition and the threat of a state takeover. My budget proposal therefore reflects my belief that the extraordinary circumstances facing our schools require immediate city action above and beyond the minimum support mandated by state law. If there was ever a time to go the extra mile for our school system, this is the year. That is why I am calling for a $1 million in additional city support for our schools to exceed what's required by the state's school spending formula. Specifically, I am proposing an additional $500,000 in the fiscal year 2013 budget, and I'm seeking City Council approval for an additional $500,000 transfer to the school budget, to the school district in the current fiscal year from a healthcare account where we are, like many other cities, experiencing savings from unanticipated declines in healthcare claims. On a year-over-year basis, the school district will effectively receive in total $3.6 million more from the city than the district received last year, roughly a 3.5% increase. In comparison, the state will provide just 1.6% more in Chapter 70 education aid. By any measure, the city of New Bedford is doing right by its schools. Now it is the task, right now, for the school district to rise to the occasion and ensure that the city's money is wisely used and wisely spent. And while the city is restricted by law from dictating the specific use of additional school funds, I won't refrain from expressing my own personal view that the additional city funds would go a long way toward restoring textbook accounts that were recently cut to virtually zero in order to stem deficits in other areas. As counselors, I am sure you have heard the same thing that I have heard about the inadequate supply of textbooks in our schools. Now, together, we can do something about it. I will conclude tonight by noting that, given our limited city resources and a tight economic environment, this commitment to our public schools does not come easily. But I'm absolutely convinced that it is the right thing to do, given the unprecedented circumstances facing our schools. I stand by my commitment to giving every one of our students a chance to succeed. I know that members of the City Council share this commitment, and that is why I ask for your support in this special effort. Despite the sober budgetary outlook and long-term vulnerabilities that I have presented this evening, I am far from gloomy about our ability to navigate our way through financial difficulties. That's because the prospects for New Bedford as a place to live, work, and raise a family remain strong. I draw strength from the knowledge that not only does New Bedford have assets that other cities lack, but that we are using those assets appropriately. We have a lot going on, and it's an exciting time in the life of our city. As was reported last week, we have recruited a nationally recognized landscape designer and native son of New Bedford to help us transform Custom House Square. A barren asphalt lot will become a spectacular urban park. By next summer, tourists, shoppers, and office workers will enjoy a welcoming green space in the heart of our business district. Downtown will finally have what it has always lacked, a central gathering place. Efforts to improve the look of neighborhoods are underway elsewhere. Work on the Acushnet Avenue International Marketplace project began a few weeks ago. The project will transform the entry of the north end from Route 18 and catalyze business investment. Most important, I have talked repeatedly about the economic prize that is our waterfront and the potential of the South Terminal project to spark a new era of economic growth. I am pleased to report that prospects for building a modern marine terminal on our waterfront have never been better. The Patrick administration and the state's federal delegation are working in lockstep with my administration to clear the remaining regulatory hurdles and initiate construction within a year. Within the offshore wind industry that will use South Terminal, word is quietly getting out around the nation and around the globe that New Bedford is going to be a key launch pad for America's new offshore wind industry. In short, we are a city on the move, and despite fiscal challenges, I, like each one of you, am bullish on New Bedford. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before the council, and I look forward to working with each of you on specific items in the weeks ahead to finalize a budget for the fiscal year 2013. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Mitchell. Number 2 is now before us, an order appropriating $254,193,836 from ordinary revenue and municipal receipts of fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2012 and ending June 30, 2013 for payment of current expenses of various municipal departments to be referred to the quasi-committee of the whole.
Second.
Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. Number 3, order appropriating $676,258 in 12 equal monthly increments from airport receipts of FY13 and the airport budget to be referred to the quasi-committee of the whole. Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. Number 4, order appropriating $18,841,137 in 12 equal monthly increments from wastewater receipts of FY13 and the DPI wastewater budget to be referred to the quasi-committee of the whole.
Second.
Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. Number 5, order appropriating $10,921,315 in 12 equal monthly increments from water receipts of FY13 and the DPI water budget to be referred to the quasi-committee of the whole.
Second.
Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. And number 6, an order appropriating $67,067 now standing in credit of the account of the CCDA traffic handicap parking as follows. $49,485 to the Commission for Citizens with Disabilities Salaries and Wages, $17,082 to the Commission for Citizens with Disabilities Charges and Services, and $500 to the Commission for Citizens with Disabilities Supplies and Materials to be referred to the quasi-committee of the whole.
Second.
Made, seconded, all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. Motion to adjourn would be in order. Made, seconded,
Second.
all in favor, opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting is adjourned.
Happy birthday, dear Corinne. Happy birthday to you.
Your choice to recycle can affect more people than you think. Call Marissa at 508-979-1493 to request your free recycling bins. This message was brought to you by the City of New Bedford and UMass Dartmouth Charlton School of Business.
Did you know that students with learning or physical disabilities are 65% more likely to be bullied than their peers? When bullying behavior crosses the line and becomes disability harassment, it's against the law. Harassment can include verbal, written, and physical threats. If you're being bullied, remember, it's not your fault. It's important to tell someone like your parent or a teacher if you're being bullied, because bullying affects everybody. If you see bullying but don't know what to do or don't feel safe stepping in, there are things that you can still do to help. Tell an adult about it. Be kind to the person being bullied at another time. Talk with them and spend time with them. For more information on what you can do to stop bullying, go to www.stopbullying.gov. Take a stand, lend a hand, stop bullying now.
This public service announcement was brought to you by the Butterfly Project, a City of New Bedford's Invest in Kids program, the Women's Fund, and the Community Foundation of Southeastern Massachusetts.
When your children ask where you got married, will you have to tell them, over there by the unleaded? When we lose a historic place, we lose a part of who we are. Help protect historic places in your community. Visit nationaltrust.org.